Hey guys, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn. We're going to cover one of the most popular closed openings, move 1 d4, Queen's Gambit, recommended by none other than famous Levy Rosman, aka GothamChess. Big YouTuber, so pay attention here. He recommends one of the cool openings is the Queen's Gambit that we, of course, have all seen the movie. So now after d4, we're going to play d5. This is the classic way to play the Queen's Gambit. Now the whole point is that white temporarily sacrifices the c4 pawn. And typically they want to get that pawn back. We're going to take up the challenge. The Queen's Gambit decline, by the way, is this move e6. This is a totally different position. Requires a little bit more knowledge, and options from white there are tons and tons of options. White can play knight c3, knight f3, go for the Caro-Kann. So I actually recommend simply take and go for the Queen's Gambit accepted. One of the more popular yet rare moves at the master and grandmaster level. Now, typically, white plays moves like e3 if they want to play it safe. But Levy, GothamChess, recommends this move e4. I actually faced this move by international master Justin Sarkar, almost 2400 rated player. So white gets these two pawns right in the middle of the board. And of course, they want to take that pawn next. I'm going to recommend to you, hold on tight to that pawn with b5. The funny part is, at first it seems like we are grabbing material and we're never going to let go of our extra pawn. In reality, though, I am setting up a very cool attacking option, counter gambit against white's Queen's Gambit. You'll see shortly what my idea is. So they typically play a4. This is exactly what Justin played. Now, unfortunately, we cannot play a6. As you guys can see, pawn takes, we cannot take back. Our rook is under attack. As the A file opens up, we're going to lose material here. Okay, no big deal. We use the other pawn, pawn to c6. All well-known stuff. Justin plays knight c3, and of course he wants to induce this move b4 to weaken the c pawn. I would say b4 is by far the most popular move, even at master level and above. But I'm going to recommend to you a counter gambit idea. We are going to fall for a little trap here with a6. At first, it seems like a really bad idea, guys, because after pawn takes, again, we cannot take with the a pawn. Our rook is under attack. That's okay. We're going to take with the c pawn. And it seems at first this is also a bad idea, because after knight takes b5, we are losing material. And we're going to fall for this trap with a takes b. Please take our rook. Of course, they're going to take the rook. Okay, and now we're going to play bishop to b7. The whole point of this setup is monstrosity of the bishop on this diagonal. But we're actually not going to go after that e4 pawn so fast. The rook is under attack at the moment. My opponent simply dropped the rook back to a1. This is the main move. And again, it's all about development, not getting your pawns back. Bishop takes e4 is not the most accurate. The most accurate is activating the other bishop. So these two bishops are really going to be powerful. Now, one thing you may notice is white right now has absolutely no development. This e pawn is still vulnerable, and our c4 pawn is well protected. We're down in exchange, and my opponent played the logical move f3. And now the star move of this setup, you have to know this next move, f5, exclam. You may wonder, what are we doing? We're opening up our king, and we're giving up a pawn in the process. It's actually a sacrifice. E takes f. And we're going to follow it up with another unbelievable move, simply knight c6, developing a piece. So far, white has only moved pawns, in this game, the knight on c3, remember, got traded for that b5 pawn. The rook played rook takes a8 and back to a1. So white still has no development. Yet we're down some material. White has rook and pawn for the knight. You may wonder, well, this is not looking good. What if I tell you in this position, white does not score so well? White scores 38% master level higher type of chess. That's really poor. White scores way below 50%, and they're supposed to have the advantage of move 1. Black scores an overwhelming 54%. I chose this line specifically knowing great surprise value for my international master opponent, and I won a nice game at the Reykjavik Open back in the day. So he plays knight e2, overprotecting this d4 pawn. On the other hand, this bishop is still stuck. The king is still stuck. Very clumsy piece play by my opponent. I simply develop. He can take the pawn on e6. He took it, of course. And I play knight f5. At this point, he is, for those who are counting material, he is +4. Rook for knight, okay, and 2 pawns. So that's +4 according to the material. According to the statistics, white is more likely than not to lose this position, and the engine approves of black as well. So white has to be play accurately here, just not to be worse. My opponent develops naturally, and after a few more natural moves, he gets into lots of trouble. So first I insert this check. He blocks with the knight. I take knight c takes d4. As you noticed, opening up that bishop, putting this knight right in the middle of the board where it controls a lot of key squares. He plays bishop e2. Of course, the king wants to castle. And once I stop him from castling, the rest is easy. Queen b6 is a simple move. Now, any kind of castling is going to walk into a discovered check. For example, knight takes a2. And I have to be a little careful, though, right? Because the king here, he's threatening check and mate on f7. But I should be more or less okay here with accurate play. Let's see. Maybe just knight back to d4, so I don't have to worry about this queen coming back. All right, so this is one of the ideas here. Let's come back and see what happened in the game. So of course he doesn't want to castle into discovered check. He played queen d2, I castle, bishop d1, a little awkward, knight takes e6, and now it's funny, white still has +2 in terms of material. In reality, he is completely lost. Why? Because the 2 rooks are completely useless and the king is wide open. I have actually more firepower with the rook, 2 knights, 2 bishops, and the queen than white. White is actually dead lost here. I'm going to show you how the game finished, but you don't have to know the rest. I played rook d8. Here, bishop f2 hits my queen, so I have to be a little careful. Bishop c5, queen c2, knight e to d4, activating that central knight. He takes, knight takes, hitting the queen, and after queen h6, he simply resigned. Now there are multiple threats: queen e3, rook e8, queen h4, and if he castles, there is more than one way to checkmate white. One of the simplest way is this double check, and then queen takes h2 mate. The other beautiful mate is knight e2, same double check idea, and then knight g3 mate. I'm sure there are more mates if you look hard enough, but these two are the simplest. So let's review how to face the Queen's Gambit that white plays, that Gotham Chess recommends. We simply will grab that pawn. Queen's Gambit accepted. E3 is a different story. That's a different setup. E4 is the kind of recommendation by Gotham Chess to go for the c pawn. We're going to block bishop from taking the pawn, protect our pawn. We're going to play c6, knight c3, a6, rare move, walking into this trap, allowing them to take the rook, hitting the rook, and then actually not taking the pawn, playing for this e6 and f5. Remarkable idea. And after pawn takes, simply keep developing, keep developing, keep developing, and eventually his pawns start falling off. Here comes one pawn, queen b6, castles. Here comes the other pawn, and eventually I dominated and won this game. So this is my win against International Master in right under 30 moves. You can probably win as well if you know these ideas. Yeah, this is actually a totally different idea after e3, because one trick that everybody learns when they first learn this e3 move, especially white players, so be aware, is if you play b5, a4, c6, white is winning here after pawn takes, queen f3. That's the resource. That's the resource that white does not have if the pawn is on e4. But that resource is enough to win the game because a rook is under attack. We have to give up an entire knight just to not lose the rook. And this is game over. White can just move the queen back. So we have to change strategy. If you want to play the Queen's Gambit accepted, you do need to learn what to do against this e5, e3 move. There is more than one way to handle it. Most players go for this knight f6, bishop takes c4, and e6. This is the safe approach. You will never get checkmated, and you're going to take care of this bishop later. You can play for c5, undermining this pawn, or a6, b5, bishop b7. So this is one of the simplest plans preferred by grandmasters like Magnus and Wesley So, but there's more than one way. If you want to be a little bit more aggressive, you could strike in the center, knowing full well that this endgame is excellent for black. For example, queen takes, king takes, knight c6, this pawn is under attack, f4, they seem to be protecting this pawn and our pawn is weak, but we simply play bishop e6, guys, and then it's actually the king that's vulnerable, and we can undermine this pawn and castle. This is a very pleasant advantage for black. And if they don't grab the pawn on e5, if they play bishop takes c4, black has a pleasant choice. You can play against the IQP, isolated queen pawn, which is a clear long-term target. Right here, you can play bishop d6, knight f3, and this knight can go to either f6 or e7, depending on your liking. Either of these options works. If knight f6, castles, you can also castle with h6 next and developing these guys. Position is roughly equal with best play, but you do have this constant target where you want to ideally get the knight to d5, play c6, get the bishop to f5 or g4, and black has long-term better prospects.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.